Hi, this is January 2nd, 2018, and this is the first Drupal UX meeting of the year.
Yay!
Featuring a bunch of great people. So I think we wanted to start with looking at some media issues. So either Ben or Adam.
Well,
Take it away.
yeah, we don't. So we don't have a new video of the file widget that we created. Well, no, that's okay though, because it still works the same way. What we're trying to iron out right now is mostly implementation bugs, primarily in the way that validation is handled. So it's nothing. There's no major change from last time. But yeah, so there's no major UX changes from last time, is what I could say. There are changes. That makes it sound like we haven't been doing anything. There have been changes. We have been, and it is getting better and better. Marco Scano has joined the fight on that one. So with that in mind, two things. The first thing is the issue about that Marcos is sort of spearheading, which is concerned with improving field UI and sort of trying to make it clear what the difference is between media, file, and image fields when you are creating one of those fields. The solution that we seem to have coalesced around is when you select the type of field that you want to create from that little select list when creating a new field, the description of that field type will show up below that, directly below that select list. And we have a patch for that. It's looking pretty good. There's currently, the patch itself works fine. There is a blocker actually for that, which is RTBC. So if any committers want to take a look at that, feel free to do it. And other than that, there is a new issue open to bike shed what the field type description should be, because mostly right now they all have descriptions currently in core, but the existing descriptions are really, really technical and developer facing. And if we're going to be exposing these to users, we have to rewrite most of them to be non-bizarre. So there's an issue for that I can dig up, in which we're bike shedding at. And I think Roy took a quick look at it the other day.
I did.
That could definitely use, I wouldn't say, I think media is not blocked on that issue specifically. I think we're just blocked on the RTBC one I just mentioned, because we can very quickly we can very easily correct the descriptions of file, image, and media, which are the ones we care about. It's just the fallout from that. So that's a thing worth mentioning. And the other thing is me and Ben are kind of shifting our focus now that the file widget is kind of where it needs to be, or close to where it needs to be, rather. We're shifting focus to two things. One is the image widget, which is apparently working quite well, based on, very similar, as we predicted, it was going to just be extending the file widget and kind of doing more or less the same thing using the same base code. So that is in progress. My understanding, Ben, do you want to tell them where that is?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, the image widget is working just as well as the file widget is, which is to say, in fact, it adds to the file widget the ability to show the alt and title fields that are associated with a given image if those things are required by the image field that sits on that media entity type. So that's all working great. I think the thing that remains to be done there is really just to test the heck out of this with different sorts of required fields. We definitely know that when a given media bundle requires a text field and then somebody makes a reference to that media bundle, whether it's a file or an image, that works fine within the context of a content entity making that reference. But I think that there's probably some boogeymen behind, multiple, cardinality unlimited tag fields and stuff like that. So that sort of testing and really hammering on this thing still needs doing, but the basic functionality works great.
Cool, thank you. So that being where it is, which is a pretty good place, Ben and I are sort of shifting our focus over to WYSIWYG support for media, which is an area that is considered part of the essential things that media needs to have, but it's not something we've been focusing on up to this point. It's kind of been off in the future and been like, well, we'll figure WYSIWYG out, when we figure WYSIWYG out. And now is the time to start doing that. So what I was hoping, what I have been doing for the next couple of days is we're trying to see, and I just kind of want UX blessing on this or ideas or whatever, is we want to kind of do a new CK editor button that works essentially the same way as the current button does for images, where you like upload an image, you set its alt text, and you can just embed it. We want to do something that works identical to that, except on the back end, under the hood, it creates a media entity and adds it to your library. And yeah, so like that it would look identical to what, it would look basically identical to what's already there. It would return an image tag just like it currently does. It would probably only work for the image media type, at least for now, because there's a lot of sort of unanswered questions and implementation stuff with regards to embedding other media types, since most other media types are not quite as cut and dried in terms of how they're embedded into a WYSIWYG. So I know that's pretty vague, but any knee-jerk thoughts on that?
Can I, just in order to really reinforce what we're suggesting, I can walk people through exactly what already happens when you embed an image into text. Mm-hmm. It may help us in this exercise to imagine that a media item is being created behind the scenes.
Okay.
Should I just do that?
Sure, go for it. Yeah. So Ben, you're going to share your screen?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, we didn't make videos. We probably should have made videos.
I'm making a video.
No, you don't have to make videos, but although the sunglasses and the cup of tea look quite well, I can't really tell what you're talking about.
All right, Ben's going to screen share so that you can go on.
Okay, so
there you are.
Blah, blah, blah. So just picture that when somebody clicks a button like this or mm-hmm. this very button, that when they choose an image and they pick anything, that what's getting created on the back end here is actually a media item entity, rather. And I right align it, and I can still have the caption, and I click save, and it appears just as though it was an image, right? So this is, we haven't written any code, but what we're suggesting is not changing this workflow whatsoever, only making it so that what people see on the back end is, and it's even going to contain all this same, pretty much all of this same metadata, only there will exist a filter which is going to convert that with the, rather the UUID is going to make reference to a media entity rather than to a file entity.
Right.
So yeah, that's a lot of jabber. How do people feel about us making this happen in code?
Uploading a new image from the WYSIWYG editor saves the image as a media entity. This is completely transparent. Only by clicking the source button, I could see that actually, and even then. Right. There's only some metadata. Yeah. What would be against it? Could be against it? I don't know.
Well, I mean, one thing that we're trying to be very mindful of as we do this is that this is a short-term solution, and soon we'll need to accommodate, very soon, we'll need to accommodate people wanting to add video media entities here and every other possible kind of media entity.
Right.
Our strategy for making that possible is that when people are on the sort of choosing, or rather, yeah, when people are on the choosing side here and they click to add a media item, that will offer them an option of what type of media entity they're going to pick.
Something
by
like
doing that, we'll then know to differentiate the code that winds up in the body of the content.
Yeah, I mean, we're not 100% sure about that exact thing, but I think that's sort of the initial ideas as we're spitballing this, because this is really something that hasn't been done in core before. So it's really kind of a blank slate.
What is the new concept then? Sorry if I asked.
The new concept. No, it's not a stupid question. The new concept is about embedding an entire, some rendered representation of an entire entity into a WYSIWYG. So Contrib already does this with the entity embed module, but this has never been done in core to my knowledge.
So it's WYSIWYG references, basically, what we're doing.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Are we sort of doing like WYSIWYG references?
No.
No.
Kind of. It's sort of like that. It's just kind of like if I want to display one entity inside, if I want to display some entity somewhere inside my WYSIWYG. So yeah, it's essentially like putting an entity reference into the WYSIWYG. I guess that's exactly the idea. And it's like the reason, this wouldn't come up normally because, why would you, generally you wouldn't embed like a user profile or another node in there, but media is a totally different story. So this is really something that has to be solved. And like, the more we think about it, the more we realize that there's just a lot, although Entity Embed did it, there's just a lot of architectural questions that need answering. But we also want to be able to have something, reasonably soon. So we think that, supporting images right out of the gate might make it, might be the best solution in the short term as the rest of it gets hashed out.
Oh yeah, would certainly be the place to start. I guess one of the trade-offs is that we're creating media references that we don't know how to reuse just yet, or at least not here. We're only creating new ones here, right?
Right. That is definitely the big trade-off here. Because like reusing them is why we wrote the media library in the first place. And that is definitely not for prime time. Although it may, I'm thinking that after 8.5 releases, it might be a good time to start looking into the media library and how to bring it into core as soon as possible, because that was an 8.6 goal. But that's, that 8.5 isn't here yet. So
yeah, I mean, the media library thing, just to interject, like it adds such a lot of code and user experience complication that we consciously elected not to add that to the entity reference fields that point from content to media. And we're making that same choice in this context.
Right.
Users, this is clear.
Users not really used a library. And so if we can get them, doing the same thing they've always done, which is just ad hoc continuing to upload images and have them appear but be media entities, we're really well positioned to focus on the library and a second stage of development. But, sorry, you were going to say.
No, yeah, I think we're all aware of the trade-offs and the sequencing of what we're choosing to do first, because this basically had to be in place for a media library to even be possible. So.
I guess one concern I have is this screen that we're looking at is already 7 clicks too many to get an image uploaded. Like ideally what we would have here is just a plus image. You drag the image on, and then poof, stuff would happen in the background. So if you're talking about another, what's that?
I said I totally agree. I was commiserating.
Yeah. So I guess I'm worried if you're adding another drop down to that same screen that's already got way too much on it, to have them choose the media or whatever. Is it possible to derive that from like the MIME type of the file? So we can know, that was an image, and so then handle it as an image media entity?
The answer to that question is that it would be possible if the media API had support for that. And that is a thing that's a thing Lightning did ages ago, and it's something I would like to cross-port over into core. It's a thing that we consciously decided to defer when we were working on actually putting media entity in core, because it was a new thing and we didn't want to the patch was already gigantic and took 7 months to review, so we didn't want to delay that any further. So that's stuff.
Also, you could have multiple media types that support the same MIME types. Right? If you have some media items for your photos, a media type for your ads, a media type for your whatever, image assets.
Yeah, but that would be a different field for ads, right? Like basically Facebook just lets me toss everything from my camera into a plus box and it sorts it out. It figures out that's an image, that's a video. If it's an image, it puts it in a gallery. If it's a video, it renders it as a player. That's the UX we want to go for here, I think, where the machine does the hard part of sorting out what's what, and the user is responsible for putting shit where it goes, right? If there's a field called ad and they're sticking PDFs in there, then that's dumb, and they shouldn't do that. But that's kind of different than what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is, not presenting the user with yet another choice to make on this already convoluted modal dialogue. But it sounds like that's something we could maybe do, but we need some underlying APIs to support it. Is that correct?
I mean, yes, but it would also not solve the fundamental problem, which is that, the difference between Drupal and Facebook is, Facebook looks at the MIME type and says, this is an image. There's not multiple types of images. There's just image, right? And then there's an image and a video, and there's a very concrete difference between them. But Drupal just doesn't work that way. Like with Drupal, it's like, well, you have these different types of images, and like we allow bundles of things. So even if we could easily sort out by MIME type, like, oh, these are the media types that can handle this thing. But if you have more than one, you still have a choice to make, and that's just the nature of Drupal. It's like the fact that there's multiple bundles of things. The only way we could get around that would be, if we laid down hard and fast rules, which I personally would be opposed to, but this is not the Drupal way, is to just be like, listen, there's one type of image, and anything that's an image is going to be treated as an image. If this is an ad, then you're going to want to use like taxonomy to classify it that way, as opposed to having different media bundles. But, media are bundleable entities. So I feel like that ship may have sailed a long time ago.
I don't know. I feel like you can handle it at the field configuration level, but we're going way off on a tangent at this point. Yeah. So, but anyway, I just want to register that as like a very huge concern, is adding more widgets to this form is like, please don't. But if that's the only way to do it, I guess we have to.
Yeah, I mean, we are also thinking about the fact that because media entities are fieldable, there can be required fields that are added by the site builder, which we would be sort of duty bound.
Right, but don't you sort that out with different buttons from the WYSIWYG editor? Like you have an image button versus a video button versus an ad button versus a whatever, and then that will dictate the form you get in the.
Yeah, we talked about that. I mean, we could. That's true. Dynamically create buttons per media bundle type, and then not automatically stick them into the WYSIWYG editor.
Yeah. That's an option. I mean, what if we had a thing where like you could choose which media types could be exposed into the editor, and then so it's like, then say for like your photos, your YouTube videos, and your advertisements, you just opt into showing those in CK editor, and then each one produces a separate button. Would that be? That is potentially.
To me, that makes way more sense, because then you're passing the the complexity of how Drupal works under the hood is kept in the sausage factory and not exposed to, Megan Sanicki at the Drupal Association, right? All Megan Sanicki at the Drupal Association needs to know is, do I want an image, a video, or an ad? And that's a pretty reasonable thing for her to know.
That might be a pretty cool way to do it. Roy, do you have any thoughts on that?
We should let actual designers and UX people talk, though. I'm just opinionated, and I hate using people to upload images. So.
I was just waiting for you to come up with this suggestion. So I would prefer. Yeah, I was thinking along the same lines. Give me an audio button that allows me to embed the MP3. Give me a video button to embed the video. Then we would still have maybe 3 types of versions of images, or would we? I don't know.
Well, if somebody created multiple media bundles which had image fields on them, then yeah, but we wouldn't care about that. Basically, we'd just be creating a button per media bundle.
Okay.
Yeah,
right. I was just going to think if there was 3 image media bundles, 3 different ones, then maybe I would want the editor to be so smart to group those in one image drop-downy buttony thingy next to the video button, next to the audio button. Not that we would have 6 or 5 buttons with the 3 different images and a video and an audio, but that's details. And a WYSIWYG button per media bundle, yes, I think that's the way to go. One relationships between the button and the thing you're trying to create.
Then we will do just that.
I just want to make sure that we don't disappoint Angie when this thing happens regarding multiple fields. So we ran into this as we were creating the file upload field that automatically creates a file media entity behind the scenes when you upload a file. If somebody has attached many required fields to the file bundle, then it was necessary for us to present the user who's doing the uploading with each required field.
Right.
So we would still have to do that here, and I want to make sure that point's clear before we go on. So for example, right here, we're only requiring the alternative text field, right? But it's totally possible to require the title field.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Somebody could add a ton of other fields.
They
just
could add,
fields.
I mean, to me, that's not something we have to worry about, in my opinion, just because it's like if somebody wants to add 25 required fields just to create an image, they deserve every bit of pain they're causing to their authors.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the site builder doing that to their users, not Drupal doing
Right,
that.
as long as we're
Yeah.
doing,
Okay.
as long as we're starting out with same defaults and just requiring alternative text.
Okay,
So yeah, my
now-
follow-up question would be, why are the align and caption options here? They're optional.
Those are hard-coded parts of the image plugin for CCAD. So the thing you're looking at has nothing to do with media. I think it's actually from the image module, so that's just part of the image module.
Mhm.
It presents those options, and that's that. I'm not sure we would necessarily, maybe for our prototype that works with images, we might preserve those options, but we could also just not bother with that. Depending.
Well,
I feel like
I
it would
mean-
regress functionality. People are like, why does it work with this button but not with this button?
Mhm.
Yeah, I think having worked with, having introduced this sort of functionality to a ton of people, they want to be able to align their pictures to one side of the content field or the other.
That's kind of
Yeah, I would imagine that to happen back when I'm in a WYSIWYG editor by selecting the image and then choosing
Yeah,
the
that's what we
alignment
are.
option.
There's problems.
I don't know
there.
but if this is there, this is not necessarily your job now here to change that behavior, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably. I'm thinking it would be best to just preserve the behavior rather than regress it.
Yeah.
Between image and media. One thing to be aware of is when you start bringing in things like videos and stuff, or tweets, or other kinds of rich media, then Align basically stops working the way you want it to.
Only in rare cases should this be left empty
so-
to create empty alternative
That's further
text.
down the
Yeah,
line.
in my view, this was like this is an image, I don't know the right word, media plugin reference entity thing. Anyway, it's an image one. That's what the options it exposes.
I think
But like
thingy is the one.
a video one might say player size is small, medium, or large, or something. I don't know.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, and that's fair. Like I think as long as we're able to have like one button per media type, we can actually have some latitude in terms of how we do that.
Because otherwise, you got to get into crazy shit. Like when you select this drop down, then the state system engages and it rewrites the form in play. And just like no, like let's just make
Not
it simple.
Joke about stuff like that. That is not good. Bad.
Okay.
But yeah, exactly.
Do you feel
Yeah, I
like the
think
rest of
that's
the media team will get on board with this idea though? Because I feel like they've worked very, very hard to make this generic field that can do somersaults and cartwheels and anything that you ask. So do you think
that the
push back on the idea of exposing each sort of configured facet or whatever as a separate button?
No, I don't think they will push back on that. As long as Roy said, as long as there's same defaults and it's not too complicated, and you can choose which media types are exposed, I don't think there will be any pushback. I think they'll just be really happy to see WYSIWYG support happen. And yeah, I think they'll just be really happy to see it. And even if there is pushback, we have UX on our side. So, our side. It's like there's no factions. It's just like UX has blessed this approach. We
leave it done. No, I'm just kidding. Yes.
So to me, I don't expect any pushback, but I can talk about it tomorrow in the media initiative and sort of just be like, hey, we're working on this. And then hopefully this weekend in Boston, I actually have a media sprint happening. So this is something I'm thinking I may focus some people on to try to whip something up for WYSIWYG support. So hopefully we can make some quick progress on that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of enthusiasm on the media initiative and not a ton of direction. So If we can just say this is what the UX folks all agreed was a good thing to do, the media initiative people will be like, great, let's get to work.
Yeah, I would
Something.
agree.
Are you still aiming for 8.5 for this?
The WYSIWYG stuff, I think it would be quite the Hail Mary if it showed up in 8.5. I think this is going to be more like 8.6 is when we'll be able to polish it for. But I mean, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even, I wouldn't really consider this.
This is a fine answer. Don't. Yeah, I'm just thinking. I mean, you have UX blessing by. I was having a look a couple of minutes of looking at it. I was just I just want to establish then that we are. So if we do the one-to-one button to media bundle thing, are we painting ourselves in some corners that is hard to revert, or
I mean,
thinking there?
To me, I think that it is kind of an implementation. It's a pretty heavy implementation choice, I think. So to me, it's like once we decide to do this, we are kind of locked into it. And the reason I say it is because I feel like just on the technical level, trying to merge all this stuff back into one thing would be really hard and an impossible migration path. So I think that it's a pretty solid decision.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't think we're going to really be able to back out of it once we sort of release this into the world. Basically, once we've committed it, we've committed to it. Is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm,
So
that's why I'm checking.
I think we're painting ourselves into a corner, but it's a good one, as Ben just said. It's a happy place. We're painting ourselves into our happy place.
AG, you did the competitive review. Is this a pattern that you think would be?
Oh god, that was years ago now. I think the pattern established by everybody else is that adding images and video and audio and stuff to your CMS is as easy and seamless as possible. Like a lot of our competitors have spent a great deal of time and effort making that like Facebook, their Facebook's not a competitor, but you know what I mean? Facebook is what everyone uses and is used to, or Instagram, shit like that. It's like as simple as possible. One click, one drag, yada, yada, that kind of stuff. So I think this general movement, if I'm understanding it properly, is aligned with that. Where the user sets out ahead of time and they know what they want to add. You know, usually they're there because they have a specific file they want to get into the CMS. So if the user is given the choice of which one to do, I think that is fine. I don't know of any other ones where there's just an all-encompassing media click, and then within that, doing a lot of different hunting and pecking. Like that doesn't seem. And I think it's better from a developer standpoint as well, because to your guys' points, like you don't know what custom fields each of these media types is going to have. Add might have tags as required field, etc. And this allows a single pattern that can apply to across all field types. And then just in core, we would concentrate on trying to get the default 80% standard profile use case as simplified as possible, but without removing the option to do more complicated things.
Right, because if I'm hearing you, then if we go the other way and just prevent one drop zone and you throw anything on it, we would still be required to do a lot of magic wizard-like step-by-step follow-up questions to get the required input and categorizing the media in its right bundle or whatever, right?
Right. There's actually another benefit I just realized of this approach, which is that it allows you to sort of have a granular permissions thing going on. If we were sort of if we were to wrap it all up in one button, then it would be like, oh, can they create media or not? And then what types can they create? Well, it's a surprise. Upload a thing to find out. As opposed with this, we have, with this, it's like if you can't add audio, then the audio button just does not appear for you, and that's it. And then once you have access, it does. So this opens up the door to stuff like that, which is, in my view, a lot clearer and actually a lot easy. And as you said, it's more developer friendly, just from an implementation standpoint, to sort of have these things be separate. So yeah, I think it's a really good idea, and I see no I see no cons to this, although I never do. I never do until I put my foot in it. But it looks like a pretty good idea to me from where I'm standing right now.
Okay, and then if there needs, right, and if we have like, because use cases, we have like 12 buttons in your WYSIWYG editor, we could still do some magic there, right? And have the buttons themselves behave smartly or whatever.
Potentially.
Potentially, yeah.
There's one thing that I want to make sure we think about before we go down this road, which is the media library that we do intend eventually to show to people.
Yeah.
So would it make sense if we went in this direction where you click a certain image button to put an image media item in, that you're then down the road given the choice between uploading a new one or looking at a library only of image media items? Is everybody comfortable with that idea? Because that to me seems like the logical follow.
I think that was actually exactly the MVP of the media library as we designed it.
Okay.
I think that's exactly what we want to do.
So like
ideally, this doesn't preclude like an admin something media library that's got everything, and then you
not at all.
No.
There already is a admin media
talking
library.
about the WYSIWYG editor, yeah, I think for the content author, if they picked image, don't show them videos and PDF files. They said they wanted to do images.
Say it, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's I think that's exactly what we want to do, and you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's another benefit of the thing. It just seems I think it would be a lot clearer for everyone involved, and a lot easier to maintain too. Less code, less crazy shit in terms of hacking around bizarre choices that users don't understand anyway.
So we'd automatically create one media library view per media.
I mean, it would probably be one view that takes an argument or something, but yeah, potentially something like that. So yeah, I like it. I like it a lot.
Of course you do.
Cut and print. Let's get to work. Let's do it.
All right, do it. Yeah,
All
thanks for bringing it forward, because it's good to make this at least somewhat considered choice, right? And
well, thank
options
you.
and alternatives. So thanks.
All right, that's media.
Anything else from the media team? Or was that the main thing?
That's it.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Cool. So I think that also brought an issue to us today.
Yep. Thanks. So I will paste one of the issues in there. We've talked about this one before. Here, where's the window again? This is basically for settings tray, you go into edit mode and it displays you're in edit mode. I'm rebuilding my laptop local environment, so I don't have it locally, but I have a
Simply test.
Simply test.
So the issue number is?
It's in the chat. It's 2773601.
Thank you.
So this is the version. This is without the patch. So right now, if I was to reload the page and I wanted to go into edit mode, click edit mode, and I get the dotted lines. I get the hover.
We're not seeing your screen if you meant to share your screen.
Okay. All right, you guys see it now?
Yep.
Okay, so I enabled settings tray. Let's reload the page. So if I hit edit here, you get the blue toolbar, you get the dotted lines, and you get the hovering. If you click on something, go into edit mode, or settings tray opens up. And this is the patched version of that issue the way it is now. You click it, you have the click on page element. So it's all the same except for this. So the problem with this is that it uses our dialogue system and the contextual module at the same time. And those are incompatible because you can't actually, they're incompatible as far as keyboard navigation goes, because you can't actually tab to, if you're doing keyboard navigation, you can't actually tab to this dialogue to close it. And potentially it could be blocking something. So well, I guess, yeah. So you might not see something on another site. I was sort of wondering if we could put off this part until after the module is stable. And my reasoning is that I think we have a lot of visual cues that you're in edit mode here without the message. And it's similar to the contextual module now. If settings tray wasn't enabled, you'd still have these buttons show up. And it wouldn't really tell you, that you're supposed to click on those buttons to see extra options. But it does tell you in both the case of whether you have settings tray enabled or not, it tells you more information in the screen and the Drupal announce. There is a issue to add a JavaScript messages API where we could throw up a message in the same that would look similar, or actually would look, at least in Bartik and core themes, would look identical to how a message would look like if it was there when you loaded the page. That issue is bouncing back between RTBC, and I would like to get it done before settings tray is stable, but it's, I wouldn't say I'm not confident that that's going to happen. So thoughts on delaying this message? Do we think that's like a blocker for the UX of settings tray?
Stunned silence.
Yeah.
I can be opinionated. So.
Yeah.
Oh, I have opinions. I
would rather hear your opinions because I'm always opinionated. So go for it.
Well, I'm not new to this anymore, so that troubles the perspective a bit. But it's starting to look redundant because of the visual cues we have. So I don't have an issue with kicking it to after something to after, because basically you would want to use the new JavaScript API. Is that the reason? I know, and then there's the accessibility issue. Would that be the new API?
Yes, because it wouldn't be something that you need to tab to and get rid of. And potentially, I mean, right now we don't have a way to remove messages from the screen, so that wouldn't solve that. But that's sort of I think an underlying issue is that we don't. Actually, the message, it would allow you, the new API would allow you to remove them, but we would have to sort of manually call that. So if we decided like, once you open the tray, you're in edit mode, so remove the message. That would be pretty easy with the new API.
Oh, because right now it would stay as it does now.
Yeah, you have to. That's we could close it now automatically, but still, like, it still could be blocking up something on the screen depending on the site.
Just thinking of, I'm not an accessibility expert, but how do you tab to the editable zones, and is that announced in a comprehensible way?
Yes, that is announced. So I don't know if you can see. So now I'm on edit. So basically, we're going off what contextual module does, and it restricts your tabbing to the contextual buttons. So if I tab, where am I? So now I'm on the user menu up one there. You can see that it's a little bit darker. Now I'm on the branding block. So if I click enter here, so tab, enter, down one. Oh wait, no, tab again once you open the button, and then enter. And we moved, one thing we did do for the tabbing was we moved the quick edit to the top.
Yes.
So that no matter what, so that you don't have to go down, and it's the most obvious choice. We had, we had talked about making it so that each region was actually a sort of double tab, so that you would tab on the whole thing, and then you wouldn't have to open the button. The problem is once you get a bunch of blocks, say if you have 20 blocks, now you have 40 tabs as opposed to 21 tabs to get to the quick edit.
Yeah.
Because you would have a double on each one. Whereas this one, you have one on each one until you get to the particular button, and you have 2 keyboard strokes to open up the tab.
Just an aside, but I'm quite impressed by this, actually, how this all works.
Cool.
But yeah, back to the original question. Like I said, I'm not new to this anymore, so disclaimer there, but it's, as I said, it's starting to look redundant, the message itself.
Anybody else who hasn't seen settings very much have a thought on the, let me see which tab is the one. This is the one, I think, with the message, on whether, this is a deal breaker or not.
Well, in the upper left corner where it says editing on the blue background, isn't that totally redundant? Like if you have that, do you also need something saying you're now in edit mode?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yep. That's true. I guess, actually, no, actually what it actually says is, originally it was going to say you're in edit mode. Now it says click on any page to edit it. Click on any page element to edit it. So my thought is the fact that we're, once you go in, we've outlined everything. And of course would be up to, would it be up to every theme? Well, we would have, like, this would be the default, is the ... around, but obviously a theme could change that. So my thought is the click on the fact that we're ... dotting everything, and when you hover it, that is a clue that you should be able to click on these elements and not just have to click on the button. I mean, I think if we said that this is not a blocker for stable, I mean, obviously we could still put it in there, but maybe we would want to not just automatically put it in there because it's a existing issue, that we would want to think about, well, is it actually a good idea? Is it actually needed? Like, even if we had the JavaScript messages, it still might not be needed, but we could.
Where this feature request came from originally was when we were doing very early prototype reviews of settings tray on these types of calls, and the worry was that, like, people wouldn't understand why all of a sudden all these little buttons appear everywhere, right? Without some kind of a prompt that explains what's happening. And because it was a new pattern, weird. We hadn't introduced something like that to Drupal before. Other systems would do different things, like they, for example, gray out the site, or do some kind of strong visual shift to indicate that that was what was happening, and this kind of thing. I think if Yoroi is comfortable with the amount of visual diff that happens and thinking that that's not going to confuse people anymore, then that's great. I mean, because one thing I'm worried about is, like, settings tray is reaching its end of life as an experimental module, and I don't think it would get removed from core at this point, but, like, by the case of rules, it could. You know what I mean? Like, it was supposed to have been stable by, I think, 8.4 and wasn't. And would I rather have a JavaScript messages API that magically points out a message that users may or may not find annoying? Or would I rather have settings tray in core? And I think I would rather have settings tray in core, because I think the layouts work is trying to build off of this. Yes. Media work might be able to build off of this, but until it's stable and part of the standard profile, we're not going to get much leverage out of it. So. Yeah,
and I would also point out that I think, obviously it's an experimental module, so not tons of people have used it. But we haven't gotten any issues that, like, I click editing and I don't know what to do. Like, that people don't understand that you can, because it seems like people understand that you can click the sections. Because when I pointed it out, when I've demoed it, nobody said, "Oh, I didn't know that part of it," or whatever.
One thing you could do is change the cursor to a hand. You could do a cursor change
Well, that makes it look like you can drag and drop the whole.
Oh, that's the cross, right? There's different versions of the hand.
Oh.
See, yeah.
Well,
Go over the
so
contextual link. See?
we are actually messing with the cursor a bit because we don't let people click on these links that would take you off.
Right.
And so I think, well, what are we doing with that? I'm trying to remember. I think we're doing something, actually that might be only in the tray. Yeah, we might, actually the fact that we disable these links may remove the cursor. I'm not sure if we actually have to do that manually.
Okay.
I was going to say, though, that the hovering on a section and it changing color, that is definitely new since that issue was filed for the message. So
Yeah,
that visually helps a lot with explaining what it is that's going on. So.
Yeah. All right. Well,
I would be comfortable moving it to a should have. Yoroi, you also.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gabor, Benji, anyone else want to? All right. By unanimous consent, let's move that to a should have. I honestly don't remember a must have in the first place, but I guess.
Yeah, it was one of the first must haves. I will update the issue and the relating ones and say we're going to at least postpone it on the, I mean, people can still debate whether it's needed or not, but I'm going to postpone, I think the issue is already postponed on the JavaScript messages one. I suppose we could decide beforehand if we don't need any message at all, but if we're going to do it, I think it makes sense to wait for the JavaScript messages. Yeah,
because now looking at it, I could also imagine a full width message on the very top that pushes down the whole page, just that one line height of the message.
That's what I first had.
Yeah. Okay.
That was rejected for some reason. I can't remember why.
Yeah.
But actually, the JavaScript messages thing API allows us to put messages in different parts of the screen. So if we wanted to add some where the messages would just pop up near the top, we can do that too. Yeah,
I would prefer postpone on the technical on the availability of the API. Decide for now. Decide not to introduce it, and have real world feedback.
Okay.
And just let's run into the issue, because this preemptive worrying about stuff that might happen is why we get sometimes kludgy UIs, right? Where we take care of all the things that aren't necessarily problems even.
Yeah. I'm looking at all that blue space to the right of where it says editing.
Yeah, I suggest.
And that reminds me of my favorite text editor. And why aren't we filling that with something? That looks like a status line to me. That's where messages belong.
I think, that's true. I think the original idea was actually that other stuff might show up there when you were in when you were in edit mode, but that's when we had place block module in core, which right now is hidden. So the idea was that we might actually have things like sort of extra modes that when you go into this, you could do like, place a block, or who knows, if you have panels, like let me rearrange panels or whatever.
It's another example of things that might happen that don't.
Yeah. So right now we're just removing this so that you know that you should get away from editing mode before you leave the page. If you want to go to any of these other things.
All right, Dad, you know what to do.
All right,
I think.
thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, I also, as for settings tray becoming stable, I also, just before the end of the year, we reviewed the Workspaces patch, and that has a very bare bones UI right now. It leaves out all the whiz-bang UI we saw in the designs initially, and then I basically discussed with them that a next improved version of the UI should leverage settings tray as well. And I even identified that as sort of as a beta blocker for our Workspaces, even because the bare bones UI itself is too bare bones. It's actually a pretty good candidate for a settings tray implementation.
So do you think it should be the Workspaces one? Did you suggest it be like the settings tray as it is now, or were you still thinking it would be that sort of top thing?
No, it should be settings tray as is now. Start from there, and that's the 0.6 version of UI, and maybe that's enough. But maybe then the 2.0 version of that UI could still be the big one. But as an intermediate step at least, and I could even see it work quite well inside settings tray and evolve that instead of moving over to the top. Thanks, Ted.
Yep, thank you guys for the feedback. Oh. I try not to use you guys, but I feel like that is south too long.
All right. Do we have any other topics to discuss?
You highlighted emphasize most important items on the structure page. Oh,
yeah.
Let me give a quick update on the out-of-the-box initiative. We had a meeting earlier today. They usually meet on Mondays. They didn't meet yesterday for obvious reasons, but they did meet today. We can expect a installation profile patch either today or tomorrow. So I once again pressed on just getting the current status as a patch available in the core queue, just to get eyes on it once more. It's not complete, but maybe it doesn't have to be. I suspect there's already quite a lot there. People are maybe worrying too much about completeness of things before showing the patch. I think I made it clear that we need to see patches even if they are works in progress. So I expect an update of this either today or early tomorrow, which uses the new way of importing content by, I guess it's node saves. It has a working, and they have that already working as well. The theme is already progressed far, inserting the content. I think this is a thing that still would insert like 3 articles and 6 recipes already. They're hammering away at it, and I think we should see something useful coming up this week.
Yeah, I actually just applied both the patches to
they're there. Okay.
Yeah, to the excuse me, simply test me. I'll screen share for like 1 second.
Yeah.
So people can see. Do you see this?
Yes.
This is what it looks like right now. So I did nothing but apply the 2 patches and choose Umami at the beginning. So, there's some overlap issues, a couple things like that. But overall, it looks amazing.
Yeah.
Like, look at how cool that looks. Imagine if Drupal looked like this out of the box. Oh my gosh. Anyway, it's really great. You can see an article. 30 dozen. Sure. We should figure out what produce we can buy. Yeah, anyway, it's team's done an amazing job with this. So it'd be wonderful to see this land in 8.5. So all of the fingers crossed. Oh, we need to update our copyright. That's funny.
Yeah.
Oh, the perennial problem. So many people have invented so many languages to deal with this problem. But anyway, yeah, that's how I first got into web development. And that's funny. All right, cool. Anyway, that looks fantastic. If you want to try it out, here, go to twitter.com/webchick. That's probably the easiest thing to do. And there's a tweet there that's got a link to the demo site as well as a link to the profile issue and the theme issue. I think people were kind of struggling with how to actually start.
Yep.
And these 2 issues, these 2 patches really, really, really need reviews. So if you are someone who knows theming and or someone who writes profiles, or has debugged profiles or that kind of thing, we would love your help reviewing those two things. So please, 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 please help with that.
Please.
That's all.
Sorry, Angie, which issues again? Can you send me the links to those? Because I have some experience with profiles on account of it's all I
Just
do
a
every
bit,
day.
Yeah. So the profile is 2809635.
Okay.
And then that needs to be there first. And then the theme is 2904243.
Okay, 2909243.
2904243.
Oh.
And I pasted them in the UX Slack too for people who are not watching.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Okay. Just take a look at these two guys.
Yeah, anyway, it's really exciting to see how far along that is. So.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Patch 18 in the second one, 1.64 megabytes.
Well.
Yeah, there's images, there's configuration, there's.
Oh, man. I'm just remembering it took me, like, when I read the media patch over at one point, that was 250K. It took me 6 hours to read that patch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is going to be very different because the patch parts of it, in fact, that's probably some feedback we could pass the team if they could strip the images out and just upload the patch, like the code change parts.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'll take
dramatically easier to review. But yeah, it's not going to be like that. It's making changes. It's all encapsulated into one theme. So
And even these handy how to upload a user reviewable core patch is useful feedback because these people really know what they're working on. They're not so familiar with the core process.
Yeah, it's no problem. I mean, this is all stuff. It's just
yeah.
I hadn't clicked on the patch yet. I just grabbed the URL of it. But yeah, because if you click on it, it's just going to freeze your browser for several minutes while you're looking at 1.64. So yeah, I'll just post a comment to that effect on the issue and just see if it's possible to split out the images into a separate patch.
Cool.
Because no one needs to review that. They just need to review the code changes. And the code changes are all like, there's a bunch of plus lines next to CSS and HTML. That's what that is.
Okay. Cool with that.
Great. That was a great meeting, everyone. Are there any other?
Everyone?
Yeah, so the one thing that I then stole the attention from is the Marcus Cano posted a patch for the emphasize more important stuff on the structure page. Let's see. Okay, let's return to that next week or in during the week outside of the meeting. But
can you list the issue?
Yeah, emphasize the most important items on the structure page. 251890.
Yeah, I thought that was older than that.
Yeah.
That's great. Because we were just talking last meeting, like, wouldn't it be great if someone just came along and wrote a patch for this, and then bam, someone comes along and writes a patch for that. That's great.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So next meeting.
Okay, I can take a look at that one too, actually, because I like this too. I think Marco's great.
Thank you very much, Adam. Thanks all for attending.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Have a nice week.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.